Hi. There is a sweet little lie we tell ourselves every year that High Holy Holidays is coming and we have plenty of time to prepare. Or we tell ourselves this lie, well, let's wait to start High Holy Holidays. We have Purim and Passover, and we have these big bar mitzvahs, b'nai mitzvahs happening. Let's just wait till summer hits. Or we tell ourselves truthfully, how can I plan? I don't know who my volunteers will be. I don't know who will be able to help us. We're not sure. And then the months tick and tick and tick. And we finally get to that warm summer, or you notice the kids are out of school every year if you don't have any at home, and you realize there is no time left. You've got 3 months till High Holy Holidays is here. So I'm here to break us from those myths and let you know that we can break High Holy Holiday planning into three major sections. And these three major sections in small communities are flexible in that even if you don't know if you're going to be the one leading all of High Holy Holiday services, or if eventually you end up hiring someone to come in and cover one or two or parts of the service, this planning helps you move pieces in and out and helps you get an idea of where you're at for the year. So let's go back to this lie. Why is this a sweet little lie we tell us? Well, and why do we fall for it? Well, here we go. Everyone's juggling multiple roles. When you're in a small community, I have a couple shorts to show you that one day I had to, with 101-degree fever, I had to start bailing water while I waited for the plumbers to come because we had burst pipe. Another day we had no heat. Some days you get a call, and unfortunately, there's a death in your community. And now you are busy trying to set up Shiva, set up other commitments that happen during that time that a family's in Shiva. So we have multiple rules that we're juggling. And that's not even to say if we have family, and most of us have other outside employment. So our boss, we can't just say, hey, boss, I'm going to take off and I'm going to take care of some stuff at my non-paid job, because pretty soon the only thing you would have then is your non-paid job. So the other problem is volunteers are stretched and we don't have many of them. And we'll get to it later, feels comfortable, especially if we were used to doing this yearly rush. May starts, schools end, Hebrew school ends for the year. And now all of a sudden we kick our High Holy Holiday planning into high gear. Uh, we'll get to it later, feels comfortable, and the holidays feel really far away in March. So let's look at what happens when we believe that lie. I want to talk about three different kinds of leaders that we have and what happens when pre-planning doesn't happen in these cases. So one of the leaders I'm going to call the performer. So this leader has a beautiful singing voice, can capture the audience with their voice. They have perfect delivery. But the problem is the perfection required the perfect community to enjoy it. Is your community the kind that just wants to sit and listen to a beautiful performer sing and chant the holidays? And if that's the case, maybe you should look into seeing if you can hire. There are many cantors and rabbis that have retired or do this part time, and they do a gorgeous job singing. But the problem is when mistakes happen and you have a single person who's really in charge of everything, stuff starts to unravel very quickly. So, I can share a couple personal examples. When we had a situation where we had a beautiful performer come and do the service, when we were struggling with ark openers and Torah readers, all of a sudden it became not who could we get, but who couldn't we use because they weren't perfect enough. So without early prep and realistic expectations, perfectionism collapses as soon as there's any pressure. So you need to know that. Then there's the overstudier who didn't ask questions. So here's the other person. They asked the committee in the very beginning, let me talk with you, give me an hour. And they ask certain questions and they prepare what kind of services do you like? What siddur you like? Do you like all the prayers? Do you like part of the prayers? Well, I have been in situations where we have had that exact conversation. We've hired a rabbi, a very knowledgeable rabbi, and the committee asked for everything. They wanted all the prayers. They wanted all the songs. They wanted to do everything. And so the leader halakhically left that meeting, that one meeting, and prepared everything. It was a perfect marathon. He did a Jonah study. He did all the times perfectly. We didn't wait. We didn't eat till exactly that exact minute. We didn't start Minka till exactly that moment. The problem is, even though the committee had polled people, the committee themselves wanted everything, the committee forgot that the community couldn't physically last through everything. So this gentleman who spent all these months preparing this perfect set of, well, not perfect, but this beautiful set of full liturgy had a frustrating point and was taken aback when people started walking out, or later and at night when we could barely get a minyan because nobody wanted to come back. Or how about when people were upset that when they found out on break fast that they couldn't eat earlier than they wanted to. So early prep includes clarifying what people actually want, going in deeper, asking the questions. What's happening? What does the community usually do? What happens if this happens? What happens if this happens? How many people do you have when you start? How many people do you have when you end? Those are all the deep questions that pre-planning helps with. My last case study is going to be about the last minute planner. And there's a lot of these. And it doesn't happen purposely. It happens because a lot of these wonderful rabbis and cantors that you can hire for the year have 30, 40 years of this wonderful experience. And they could probably do the services by heart in their sleep. They just need to look a few days before and remember a few things here or there and determine with the community if there's some prayers they like and some prayers they don't. But they've been doing this for 40 years. They could do this backwards in their sleep. The problem is they didn't communicate that with anyone. Or they didn't communicate that maybe we want an extra piece here or an extra piece here. And so everyone else is scrambling when at the last minute, this person reminds them, oh yeah, we're going to do candle lighting this night, so we need candles. And we're going to do Kiddush this night. And we're going to do this way. And then we're going to do Tashlik this way. And so at the last minute, you have a team of volunteers who, instead of joining the high holy holidays they were looking forward to, are now working the whole high holy holidays to get the materials they need. So this is a problem. So these stories show that when you're silent because you have a last minute planner who knows everything, chaos can be created. The truth is that small behemoths can prep early, and they need to prep early, even if they don't know what their final plan will be. This shifts the game to empowerment. And if you are doing this for your first time, or you are a small community and the majority of things are relying on you, this is important. This gives you the empowerment. The early prep isn't about fancy spreadsheets or making booklets full of materials. It could be a whole bunch of sticky notes in a book. It can be an old notebook you used to use 10 years ago and has 50 leftover pages. It's about being steady, confident, humane to yourself and your community. It protects your voice. It protects your nerves. And it lets you think about things as they realistically are. And this is where you can say to yourself, I can do this. Truly, I can. You break it down in the quiet and you know what you can. And if there are things, excuse me, that you feel you can't do, you can actually find that out at that time as well. So let's talk about what the pre-planning phase looks like. Anywhere between January and March, it's important that you take a look and walk through some practical steps. Between January and March, like to identify the service I'm actually leading. Verify with the community what you're actually going to be doing, which services you're leading, or if you're the sole one in charge, determining what your services are. We have many people who have life-threatening illnesses or chronic disease. If you're undergoing cancer and chemo one year, the services that you lead better be a lot different than the services you lead when you're healthy. You have to make sure you know what the community expects, what you can provide, and reconcile these early. And then have clear reasons or start to develop those reasons about what you're including or skipping. So, for instance, this year, Rosh Hashanah, I believe, is on Saturday, which means we can't do Tashlik on Saturday. So I have to add another service or another type of service or another event on Sunday in order to get the majority of the congregation back to the synagogue for Tashlik. That's just how ours operates. Let's be honest. A lot of small congregations, if there's not food, no one's coming. And we have one of those. It's a joy and it's a curse. So know in your head the service that you believe you're leading and know in your head why you're doing it that way. And that's important because if people try to sway you, you need to know, wait, I am doing it this way because that is the way I have to do it to preserve my health or because our synagogue doesn't have stamina. And you need to make sure that you're clear. Now, the next thing you need to do is build a service outline. And this is a starting outline. If you have one from prior years, start with that. I keep all my service outlines for the last few years. If you are in a position where this is your first service, please borrow outlines from whomever you can find. My first year, when I was left all alone and I had no one to help me, the C car on the reform side had lists of outlines that they used or had people submit when they went to their new Siddur. So, in fact, I will show you the Mishkan. This is the service person's guide. This is the pulpit edition, the big pulpit edition. They had lots of different services outline types, and that was a big help. If you have friends or a website or that you can go to, or sometimes if you just look on congregations' websites, you will see High Holy Holiday materials or praying for High Holy Holidays. I am trying to get a list of some really good ones, but those change very often. But you download those service outlines. They have them for conservative, they have them for reform, they have them for all different types of things. So build those service outlines into one draft for you if this is your first time. Otherwise, I suggest, unless it's totally not doable, that you start from what your community used in prior years. Then what you need to do is go through your service outline, go through your service, mark in bright colors the items you feel like you have to study. Like, for instance, I cannot do this prayer. Maybe I cannot sing Rosh Hashanah unless I absolutely practice it. Or I cannot do this part of the service unless I absolutely practice it. No, make a color system or a paper star for you, or a triangle if it's, mid, and a square if you're good to go. Whatever you know, you want to learn them, you want to separate them into three categories. What you need to learn, what you need to refresh, and what you can read straight from the book. And that's important to know early. And you do that privately before you even meet with anyone if you have a team. Know where you're at. This also goes for the Torah portions. If you're expected to do a large section of the Torah portions as well, I'm going to do a separate video about how to weave that in. But no, listen, I've got Torah portion 1 really well. I know Torah portion 2, but last year 3 to 5 didn't work so well. Or now it's Shabbat this year, Saturday. I need to break the Torah portions into 7. So now how do I do that? Okay. Know what you're dealing with early. You don't have to make any judgments about it. You just need to know now what's coming forward. Okay. Then step 3, do what I call a stumble pass through the moxer. Get your moxer. Get your own moxer, whether your community gives you one to use for yourself, and get a pencil, and you are going to write in that moxer with a pencil. You are going to flip through the service. You're going to mark everything with sticky notes, that every stumble, every forgotten melody, every question you need to look up. Do I do this one that's a Shabbat? Do I not do this with a Shabbat? Some moxers are more forgiving than others. Then what you're also going to do is notate after you make your study list. This is easy, this is hard, this is whatever. You're going to assess how much help you need. And this is kind of a toolbox for me, or kind of my way of determining what help I need. If you have a service that's 2 hours or shorter, you can mostly do that service alone. Will your voice be a little bit challenged at the end? Probably. But you can do that service by yourself. More than that, every hour that you add, you need to understand you are going to need some support. And by support, I mean that if your congregation is so small that it cannot even say the English prayers together without your voice keeping the group together. In fact, sometimes I go to services in small congregations and the leader stops to take a sip of water during an English prayer. And all of a sudden, that English prayer ends up like 12 prayers because the group isn't even able to keep their cadence together when the service leader stops in English. So you need to know what kind of support you need. And that is going to be another tool to say, do you need to trim some more from your service? Or is there people that you can bring up that actually can do a couple prayers in a row? People underestimate the physical demands of the service. Everyone is nervous. Even people I've talked with cantors and rabbis who have done this for advice. I've asked for their advice. They've been doing this 10, 15, 20 years. They tell me that they're still nervous. In fact, there's a wonderful class. Joey Weissman does a program. He has an online service. It's well worth it if you need more help, especially with Nusach and singing these things. And he even says that one of the things that people do, experienced people, is they start their songs so high because they're nervous every year. We all only do this once a year. So that is another reason why I start pre-planning so early, because we start this early so we don't feel like we're doing it just once a year. We feel like we're doing it 6 months of the year. So people understand that you need water, breath, pacing, all of the prep. And if you are doing Yom Kippur fasted, water fasted, and completely fasted, you need to practice that and understand you will need some more help. It doesn't do you any good to do the whole service if no one can hear you because your throat is so parched. I always tell people as a joke when they mention something at the end of High Holy Holidays, you can even hear a little rasp in my voice now, that I always sound like the one lady who smokes the cigarette from the Disney cartoon Monsters, Inc. The lady that says, Mike Wazowski. Her voice is really gritty. That's what my voice sounds like if I'm talking a lot, teaching a lot, or not able to get enough fluids in. I'm one of those people that can't water fast on Yom Kippur, or there would be no one to hear the service. Okay, so rounding this out, when are we starting? Well, if you haven't started, if you're not a January, February, March, or January, February person, you are absolutely now a March and April person. You're going to fit in some time between Purim and and um, and Passover and Yom HaShoah. I know it's a busy time of season, it's spring, but you need to go through, do the things we talked about, pre-plan, get your outline together, get your notes together of things you need to find out, people you need to ask or talk to, your expectations or your study list. You're also going to do a fast check of your materials. And what I mean by this is 1 year, I opened up my books in one of our old closets and found out there had been a water leak in the closet. And I had 180 moxers that were now moldy, that could not absolutely be used. I couldn't even open the closet without allergies immediately hitting me. I had to buy new moxers that year, and that is not a cheap prospect. We had to do a fund campaign. I had to explain. We went through a whole sort of thing. So pre-planning, make sure you do a general outline of what you need and expectations of kind of right now what you think you're going to need for help or service space, or maybe even service types. Maybe you only do 1 day of Rosh Hashanah, like I said, but because it's Shabbat, if you want tashlik, you now need to do two. Maybe you need to make a study list because now you lost a Torah reader. And now instead of doing 2 Torah portions, now you've got 3. Maybe you have to do all of them. And then do a quick run through to say, hey, do I still have books? Do I still have moxers? Or if not, do I need to find something new? Because you cannot start studying until you know what you're studying and presenting from. Finally, in May onward, that's when you need to be ready to go. And we will talk about the next stage, which is the actual planning and practice stage, where we go in and we work with our nitty gritty. But just so you know, when May hits, that's when the weekly practice should start. 30 minutes of liturgy works great for me. Don't know if it will for you. 30 minutes of Torah works great for me, but you're building stamina and confidence. Finally, I want to let you know wholeheartedly in your heart that this sweetest lie that says Bemis can't prep, small Bemis can't prep early is a lie. It doesn't matter if you know who's helping you, if you don't. As things fall into place, you have a plan that you can adjust. You're not doing it by the seat of your pants. The truth is, early prep is the greatest gift you can give yourself and your community. And that's important because that lowers your anxiety. It makes clear what you can say yes to in that future and what you can't say yes to. Maybe you want to take, or your spouse wants to take, a huge 4-week vacation this summer, but this is your first high holy holidays that you are doing alone. And after you do your prep, you find out that, hey, I need a new moxer. I'm going to have to do a lot of practice. This year may not be the year for a summer trip. Maybe we can take a fall trip. So I want to encourage you. You don't need perfection. You need preparation. You just need to put some stuff together to know what you're doing. And I hope you'll come back for the next part of the planning phase for High Holy House, which is the full planning phase, starting with practice. So thanks again and welcome. Small Bima, big Torah.